Hello, my name is Daniel. Thank you for being here with me today. If you enjoy real, heartbreaking cheating stories from Reddit, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me. This is a story that's been haunting me ever since I read it, because sometimes the person you trust the most is the one who teaches you what betrayal really feels like. The original poster, who I'll call Meredith, is 35 years old and lives in a quiet part of Asheville, North Carolina. She's a high school teacher, grounded, patient, and someone who always gave more love than she ever asked for in return. Her boyfriend, Darren, 37, worked as a butcher in a local farm-to-table co-op. They met online during the early days of lockdown, when the world felt upside down and human connection felt more precious than ever. Meredith says she wasn't immediately drawn to him physically, but Darren had a reputation. He was friends with her friend's older brother, and people described him as steady, decent, honest. That mattered to her more than charm. Their relationship didn't take off like fireworks. It was a slow burn, the kind that makes you believe it might last. 9 months in, they moved in together. He worked long hours. She took care of everything at home, cleaning, cooking, feeding his dog. It worked. It really worked. They laughed together. They argued and made up. They planned a future filled with small joys and big dreams. When people asked her what she saw in him, she'd smile and say, "He's just a good man." And for 2.5 years, she believed it. The end didn't come with a fight. It didn't come with cold distance or obvious signs. It came on a quiet Wednesday at 4:03 p.m. in the form of a Facebook message from an old high school acquaintance named Rachel. Rachel worked at a boutique hotel downtown. She recognized Darren from Meredith's social media, his beard, his smile. She said she didn't want to get involved, but she thought Meredith should know. Darren had been coming in regularly with another woman, the same woman, always checking in for just a few hours at a time, sometimes evenings, once for the entire night while Meredith had been out of town visiting her sister. Meredith felt her body go cold, numb. She asked Rachel for the dates: August 2nd, August 6th, August 12th, August 19th, August 27th, all from around 7 to 11 p.m., except the overnight, which matched exactly with the weekend she'd been gone. She opened her text history with Darren and cross-referenced every date. He had lied, in detail. One of the more elaborate ones, he told her he was helping a farmer friend move pigs onto a truck in a nearby town. She remembered reading that text and feeling confused. Darren didn't talk about this friend before, and wouldn't a farmer already have help for things like that? But since Darren was a butcher, it felt believable. She didn't question it. That night, the night of the pig loading, he came home just after midnight. He climbed into bed, laid on top of her like he always did when he missed her, wrapped his arms around her. He kissed her neck and whispered about how messy the farm job had been, about how tired he was. He was unusually tender, unusually present. She now knows why. He'd just left a hotel room with another woman. Meredith didn't get much time to process. It was 4 p.m., and Darren didn't have a car. She had been driving him to and from work for weeks. It was time to pick him up. She almost didn't go, but something in her snapped into quiet motion. He got in the car and kissed her on the cheek like nothing was wrong. As she pulled away from the curb, she noticed hot air balloons drifting in the late summer sky. It reminded her she had just booked non-refundable balloon tickets as a surprise for his birthday. She turned to him and smiled. She said, "That's your surprise," she said softly. "We're going up next Saturday." He lit up, rubbed her shoulder. He said, "You're amazing," he said. He didn't even notice she was taking a different route. She asked gently, "Do you feel like we've been a little disconnected lately?" He shrugged. "Work's been crazy, and with school starting back up for you, I guess we just haven't had time." He launched into a story about some drama at the co-op. Meredith nodded along, listening like she always did, until she turned down a street that was all too familiar to her now. The hotel came into view. That's when Darren went quiet. "What are we doing?" he asked, panic rising in his voice. Meredith pulled into the lot, parked, turned off the engine. She looked over at him, her hands trembling but her voice calm. She said, "Welcome to the worst day of my life. I know what you've been doing. I just need to hear you say it." He stared out the window, silent for 10 minutes. She whispered, "I was hoping you were going to say this was a surprise for me, that I ruined it. I really wanted that." He whispered, "I wish I could say that too," still not meeting her eyes. She asked, "How long?" He held up one finger. She asked, "1 month?" He snapped, "1 time," finally turning to look at her. She shook her head. "That's not true. I know it's not." He looked away again. "I don't know why I did it. I don't know if I ever really loved you." That was when everything inside her broke. He cut my face in his hands and told me he loved me, that nothing would ever change that. But just days earlier, we were budgeting for our future, making plans to go look at rings. I had driven him to his parents' house, still believing in the life we were building. Looking back now, I wish I had kicked him out of the car right then, saved myself from the shame of pretending everything was still okay. When I got home, I called my parents. They came over and helped me pack up all of Darren's things into green garbage bags. The shock on their faces mirrored the hollow ache in my chest. We cried together as we boxed up the pieces of my life. He showed up that evening, barely said a word, and left without looking back. That was it. No apology, no remorse, just silence and footsteps fading down the sidewalk. He owed me $25,000. It started in October of 2021. Darren had asked to borrow the money so he could pay back his former employer, someone who had falsified income documents so Darren could qualify for a mortgage. The agreement was that Darren would cover the taxes the business would eventually owe on that fake income. When he left that job, the employer demanded the money, and we were in love, so I handed him a check from my line of credit without hesitation. Maybe that should have been the first red flag, that he was willing to commit mortgage fraud. But I didn't see it. I only saw someone I loved, someone I believed in. Since then, he hadn't paid back a single dollar of the principal, only small amounts of interest here and there. He lived rent-free in my home while I paid the bills, all so he could save up for a car and for our future. But he didn't spend that money on us. He spent it on hotel rooms and dinners with another woman all over Asheville. I kept asking myself why. Why wouldn't she, this woman he was seeing, ask him to break up with me first? Why hotels? Why not her place? But the answer came soon enough. She still lived with her parents. Her name is Erin. She's also a chef. They work together, side by side, at the same culinary business downtown. She's younger, freer, and according to Darren, they're soulmates. He told me they had so much in common, that they just clicked, that they made sense in a way we never did. And I suppose I want to believe it, because if they really are soulmates, if they really did fall in love so completely, then maybe that's the only way to explain how easily he dismantled everything we had. Maybe my pain bought them a love story. I'm a sucker for love stories. I used to believe in them, used to think mine was one. Maybe they'll rewrite their beginning, gloss over the fact that he was still sharing a bed with me while sneaking off to hotels with her. I hope they're happy. I hope they were worth all this. I hope I get my $25,000 back. I hope the aching in my chest eventually fades. But right now, the story is still unfolding. He promised to pay me back in full by September 30th, in writing, said it would be through a bank draft, and if not, small claims court is my next stop. Someone asked me if I'd confronted Erin. I haven't, but she knows about me. We've been at the same work events before. She smiled at me, pretended nothing was going on. I don't think she knows about the money, but she knows enough.
She's not innocent in any of this. People imagine Darren as charming, the kind of man who could seduce someone away with wit and looks. I wish that were true. It would hurt less. But the truth is, he's not suave. He's not magnetic. He's just a man who fell in love with someone else and didn't have the courage to leave before he burned everything down. They're moving in together next Monday, less than 3 weeks after he walked out of my house. That fact alone cuts deeper than I want to admit, not because I want him back, but because he didn't even hesitate. I won't take him back. That door is closed. But I'll be honest, I wish I'd had the option to turn him down. I still don't know if the Canadian Revenue Agency will care about the fraud. The taxes were technically paid. The mortgage company might not care either. Darren has made all his payments so far. But for the record, his actual income is $70,000. The fake documents claimed he made $117,000 for 2 years. Serious fraud. Do I want him to face consequences? Yes. But will he? I doubt it. I think he found his person, and he got away with it. After I confronted him, he went no contact. Cold. Final. I've emailed a few times, just outlining the debt he owes me. His replies are cold, short, precise, no emotion, no regret, just the facts, like he's closing a business transaction. I'm beginning to accept what I never wanted to believe. He's already moved on. I've blocked Aaron on every platform I can think of. Deleted photos, archived messages. I'm just waiting to block his number and his email as soon as that final payment clears. Then I can shut the door on him completely. For good. Someone online asked me if Darren was a butcher or a chef. It's kind of both. He's trained as a butcher, but he works in a specialty shop that blends butchery and culinary service. Aaron, on the other hand, is a full-fledged chef. They work together for a company that owns a trendy meat and cheese boutique, plus a bakery and restaurant in downtown Asheville. It used to make me proud, the work they did. Now, I can barely walk past the place. Someone else commented that they admired my calmness, my ability to stay composed when everything was unraveling. I'm trying. I really am. And strangely, the more I learn about what Darren was hiding, secret accounts, private investments, the fact that he moved in together less than 3 weeks after I told him to leave, the easier it becomes to let go. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It does. Every day. Some days it's a sharp ache. Other days just a dull emptiness. But I'm learning to breathe through it. Another comment stuck with me. Someone said, "It sounded like a partnership." And it did. It really did. That's the most painful part. It felt like we were building something real. I carried more than my share when he was drowning in financial problems, installing a new sump pump, replacing a broken dryer, hiring tree trimmers for his rental house, and even helping cover taxes he owed. His car repayments were crushing him, and I earned more, so I helped. I told myself it would all even out eventually, that when he got back on his feet, he'd carry me if I ever stumbled. But I guess I was the only one planning forever. In hindsight, maybe all those financial setbacks were karma showing up early, a warning I refused to hear. Going forward, I know I want a partner who's more financially responsible, someone who's not constantly teetering on the edge and dragging me with him. I used to think love was enough. Now I know better. Someone mentioned the dog. I don't talk about her much, but God, I miss her. Her name's Maple. Darren had her for less than a year when I came into the picture, but I was the one who fed her, walked her, took her to the vet, rubbed her belly every night before bed. She felt like ours. No, like mine. When I kicked him out, I let him take her. I thought I was being fair. I was trying to take the high road. but some nights the silence in my house feels so heavy without her paws tapping across the floor. I did email him once asking if he'd consider letting me keep her. Just let me have something. He didn't respond. I don't even know if he read the message. I think to him, our story is already over. The book closed. Done. There's another detail I've kept mostly to myself. I actually lived with Darren in his place for about 4.5 months while my house was being renovated. We talked it through, made the decision together to move back into my house and rent his out. He even paid rent for a little while after we moved in. But then things kept going wrong for him, financially. Always something. Always urgent. So I told him he could live rent-free for 5 months to make up for me staying in his place during renovations. It felt fair at the time, generous even. I believed we were balancing the scales. Turns out I was just carrying the weight while he planned his exit. There are some legal things I haven't pursued yet. Small claims court is one option, but I don't really know how it works here in Canada. I've seen people in the UK mention their caps, maybe $3,000, maybe $5,000. Here, I'm owed $25,000. I don't even know if it's worth the emotional cost to go down that road. And yet, I still think about it, about the way I found out, about being tipped off by someone who barely knew me, while the man I trusted came home and climbed into bed like everything was fine. Some people say I handled it well, that I stayed composed. But the truth is, I died a little in that hotel parking lot, and since then I've been learning how to live again without him. Not out of revenge, just survival. And I know now I deserve better than what he gave me. I just wish he'd seen that too. I once posted in another subreddit asking if anyone had experience with mortgage fraud, specifically on the investigation or prosecution side. It wasn't out of some thirst for revenge, it was more like desperation mixed with a small hope that maybe there'd be consequences for what he did. Darren's former employer had faked his T4s, those are income statements for anyone not familiar, to make it look like he made far more than he actually did. In 2019, his real income was around $65,000. By 2020, the forged documents said he made $117,000. In 2021, $80,000. But the truth? He never broke $70,000 in reality. The arrangement, apparently, was that Darren would pay the taxes the employer would owe the government on the fake earnings. So when he quit that job, the employer came knocking for the money. It came out to around $19,500. And since we were in love and I trusted him, God, I trusted him, I gave him the money, wrote the check from my line of credit like it was no big deal. Like love meant sacrifice, and I was willing to prove it. The employer ran a restaurant here in Asheville, but he was also a licensed mortgage broker and financial planner. He didn't broker Darren's mortgage himself, but he had no issue forging income documents for him. I don't know if the lender, RFA, would care. They've been getting their payments, 16 months without issue. The house Darren bought is a rental now. It pays for itself. No red flags to anyone on the outside. So why do I care? Because I was the fool who gave him that money. Because I believed him when he said we were building a life. Because the $27,000 I gave, $29,500 for taxes, the rest to help with car payments, his savings, our plans, was everything I had. Now I'm left with nothing but memories and a spreadsheet of lies. I'm pursuing small claims over what I can, but as for the fraud, I've hesitated. I have copies of his T4s, job letters, mortgage documents. We shared a computer. We filed taxes together. I know his banking info, but none of it is in my name. I gave that money knowingly, even if I didn't understand the full picture. Does that make me complicit? People have told me the Canadian Revenue Agency probably wouldn't care. The taxes were technically paid. Darren also paid a few thousand in personal taxes for the 2020 year, the one with the inflated income. The employer could easily say the extra money was a gift. They've covered their tracks well. And Darren, of course, closed the bank account that had the questionable deposits once the mortgage went through, so the truth disappeared behind him. A part of me, a bruised and broken part, still fantasizes about the mortgage being called in, about him having to face it all. But I know that's not likely. I probably won't even report it. Sometimes I just play it out in my mind to help me fall asleep. For the record, I never benefited from the fraud. Everything's in his name. All I got from it was debt and heartbreak. But here's the update that matters. He paid me back, in full, today. That doesn't excuse what he did, not the betrayal, not the lies, not the way he ghosted me after 3 years of shared bills, shared meals, shared dreams. But still, he showed up. My neighbors were all outside when he arrived. I hadn't planned that, but it felt like the universe gave me a little moment of justice. He had to do the walk of shame, up the driveway, with his head down. My mother was waiting for him on the porch, strong, still, calm. She took the bank draft from his hand and handed him a small box of items I found in the back of my storage closet. She told me later that his hands were shaking. My neighbors said he couldn't look anyone in the eye, that his face was flushed red. I can't lie, it made me smile, just a little. I felt lighter, relieved, maybe even proud of myself for seeing it through. I hope that feeling stays. Someone online asked where he got the money, and the answer is as depressing as the rest of this story. Erin, his new live-in girlfriend, the one he left me for, gave him part of it. Her parents helped too. Darren's mom even sent me some money on his behalf, and he took out a personal loan to cover the rest. Apparently, Erin paid the first and last month's rent for their new apartment. She also gave him money toward the $25,000 he owed me. Part of me wonders if she knows exactly what she signed up for. I could still report the mortgage fraud. I have everything I need, but I won't. I've given enough of my time and energy to this man. He gets no more. Letting go doesn't always come with fireworks or clarity. Sometimes it just looks like closing the door and choosing not to open it again, even when you still want answers. Especially when you still want answers. The money came in the form of a bank draft, clean, traceable, final. It had already cleared by the time I checked. Darren took out a loan to cover most of it, and from what I've pieced together, he also used those same fake income statements to boost his approval. Erin gave him a few thousand. She also paid for their apartment. The deposit, the first and last month's rent, even helped settle some of what he owed me. His mother sent the rest in an e-transfer. He had to cobble it together like some sad jigsaw puzzle of guilt and new beginnings. But in the end, the total added up. One commenter joked that they wished they could have walked behind him banging a giant drum yelling, "Shame! Shame!" as he made his way up to my door. And honestly, that visual made me laugh. A little levity in a story that's been anything but. My mom said he was shaking when he handed over the envelope, wouldn't make eye contact, looked like someone waiting for a sentence to be read. That moment, as brief as it was, made me feel something I hadn't in weeks. Power. Not revenge, not triumph, just the quiet power of survival. And now, after everything, I want to be clear about something. Darren wasn't a narcissist. He didn't fit the mold. My therapist agrees. He wasn't a master manipulator or a cruel mastermind. He was just ordinary. An average man who cheated, who lied, who ran when things got too complicated. He don't think he hurt me because it brought him joy. I don't think he sat up late at night scheming how to wreck my life. He just didn't care enough not to. He didn't know how to end things cleanly, so he let them rot slowly instead. People still say things to me like, "Really, Darren? He seemed like such a good guy." And the worst part is he still gets to be that. He paid me back, so in the eyes of many, that makes him honorable, reliable, a good guy who made a mistake. But when someone isn't a textbook villain, the world starts asking you what you did to drive them away. I've asked myself those same questions. Was I not affectionate enough? Not sexy enough? Not fun enough? Not her? I wish I could just label him a narcissist. That would make this feel less personal, more clinical, more detached. But when someone who seemed decent breaks you, it feels like a reflection of your own failure. Like you weren't even good enough to keep the good guy.
So let me just put this plainly for anyone else sitting in that same shame. He wasn't a good guy. Good guys don't commit fraud, lie for years, cheat in hotel rooms, and then disappear without a word, not even to ask about the dog. He wasn't a monster, but he wasn't good either. He was just someone who made selfish choices and left someone else to pay for them. And while he's building a new life on borrowed money and borrowed love, I'm left putting mine back together, piece by piece. But I did get the money back. And that means something. Not everything, but something. And I'm walking forward now, even if my steps are slow. What happened to Meredith is, heartbreakingly, something many people can relate to. Betrayal doesn't always come from villains. It often comes from people who seem kind, dependable, even ordinary. And that's what makes it so hard to process. If you're in a relationship and something feels off, trust that instinct. Not every lie comes with red flags. Sometimes it's silence, shifts in affection, gut feelings that linger even when nothing seems wrong on the surface. Protect yourself financially, even when you're in love, especially when you're in love. Don't co-sign things you don't understand. Don't lend money you can't afford to lose. Love can blind us, but paperwork does not lie. And if you've been betrayed, remember, healing doesn't mean excusing what they did. Closure isn't always a neat conversation. It might just be a moment where you decide to stop letting them take up space in your heart. Surround yourself with people who remind you of who you were before the damage. Get therapy if you can. And above all, stop asking what you lacked. Their betrayal was a reflection of their character, not your worth. You are not the sum of what someone else failed to love. You are already enough.